Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is just a short video to make sure that you know about the latest publication to come out from Ibn Ashur Center. This is something that we announced just a couple of weeks ago, and it's already had thousands of downloads, a lot of interest and support, and already some wonderful feedback for this translation of Surat Ya-Sin based on the tafsir of Imam Ibn Ashur. So this is part of our broader project called the Light of Assurance. It contains what we call the assured translation. That is to say, the Quran translation based upon an important work of tafsir in the 20th century by Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur, may Allah have mercy on him. So, in a post that you may have seen on Facebook or on what's formerly known as Twitter, we talk here about how we are trying to change the way that we write tafsir in English, trying to move on from some of the things which I've been involved in and still am involved in, translating works like Tafsir of Imam al-Razi, parts of Al-Itqan by As-Suyuti, the Tafsir of Ibn Juzay, and others. This is all very good to access parts of our tradition, but there are also certain limitations that we encounter when trying to take works like this and translate them directly and in full into English. What we need actually is to take the insights from works of tafsir, especially something which is as detailed as At-Tahrir wa Tanwir by Imam Ibn Ashur, and to turn it into something which gets you the main point in English through a Quran translation. And then what can't be covered by the translation itself, we cover through footnotes and supplementary information. So I'm going to show you this PDF. First of all, you just need to know that you follow the link, ibnashur.com/yasin. Over here, you just need to stick in your email address and you can then download the PDF for free. And this is a gift to you. It is around 40 pages, which initially in Ibn Ashur's tafsir, I've got a copy of it here, came to about 87 pages in the latest Arabic edition. So instead of reading 87 full pages of complex tafsir, and let me just show you roughly what that looks like in Arabic. Instead of having to read through all of this, you get the result of me reading it and annotating it and checking it and making conclusions about what that means for the English language and how the tafsir helps us to understand the meanings of the Quran and how we get that in a summarized form in the English language. You can also find here a course. Many people have done this already, hundreds of people, alhamdulillah. A course on Surat Ya-Sin, a very small nominal fee, of course, £36 because it is Surah 36. In this, you can actually go through with me the whole of the surah and listen to the main insights from Tafsir of Ibn Ashur. So let me share with you how the PDF actually looks. So after the front cover, we have got an introduction by myself and the team. This is the editor's introduction, just to tell you a bit about the background of the project. And then there is a summarized form of the introduction done by Ibn Ashur himself, rahimahullah, to Surat Ya-Sin. And then you start to see these double page spreads. Now, this is an ideal form. If you get the PDF and you just read through it in a normal way, you wouldn't see it as a double page. But if you can, and you set it to a double page, then you will actually see it the way it's meant to be seen. That's partly why I'm making this video, to encourage you to do that. And if you're printing it out, then ideally print it double-sided so that you can then open it up in this way and you can see the double page spread. So on the left, we have got essentially a Quran translation that looks much like you would normally see a Quran translation looking. However, what's special here is that it has been carefully crafted to follow the instructions of Al-Imam Al-Tahir bin Ashur. And all the choices, for example, saying by the perfected Quran rather than typically by the wise Quran, you are seeing here his preference for how the ayah should be interpreted. Another feature that you can see over here is that we have got some footnotes for qira'at, because in the main part, we have made this Arabic Quran according to the riwayah of Qalun an Nafi'. So this is because Ibn Ashur was writing with Qalun or with Nafi' right in front of him, and he based that his tafsir on it primarily. but then he also explains according to the different qira'at, and of course, according to the most famous qira'ah nowadays, Hafs and Asim. So let me show you what happens on the right-hand page. We have got here little paragraphs. In these paragraphs, we have now expanded the translation with some further words of explanation and clarification. And when we do that, we make it a more joined up discourse. We make it more suitable for paragraphing in English. We make it a bit easier to understand what is intended by the ayat. And everything that we put in between is based on what we understand also from Ibn Ashur's tafsir. So many of the things on this first example are quite straightforward, very commonplace. Sometimes you'd see some things which look simple, but they are based on or initially a paragraph or so in Ibn Ashur's explanation. So, for example, when it is said in Surat Ya-Sin that there are people in Mecca whose forefathers were not warned, who did not receive a warner or a prophet, well, that doesn't mean that they never had in their ancestry prophethood, because of course they did. They are descendants of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam. So what's intended is that their recent forefathers did not receive any warner. So all of that insight, instead of being a separate point or being a footnote, has just been condensed into one single word placed here into the translation. So if you want to see the unexpanded translation, you look on the left-hand page. If you want to see the expanded translation, you look on the right-hand page. And we have also these headings as a way of helping to navigate and get a sense of what's happening in the text, how is it progressing and moving, what are the themes, how are things connected to each other. And then beyond that, anything that doesn't simply fit within the expanded translation and within the paragraph, where we feel that there's something additional that ought to be known, we put that down here in the footnotes. And these footnotes are mostly based upon the tafsir of Ibn Ashur as well. We use the letters IA to indicate that these are points summarized from the tafsir of Ibn Ashur. So again, we're trying to move away from the massive task of translating the entirety of a tafsir like that unabridged. And we're instead trying to get to the main point so that by reading this, you have actually grasped the main thing that Ibn Ashur is saying here. If you want to investigate in more detail the way that he talks about it, you can, of course, go back to the Arabic text. And if you don't know Arabic, then this is an incentive to learn it. So this is the way that the tafsir in English is structured. This is something different, but it is something that we believe really is the right direction to go in. And if you do the Yasin course, and that's still available for you on our dedicated platform as the beginning of our Ibn Ashur Academy, then you can hear me going through mainly the unexpanded translation here, along with these paragraphs. And we take it paragraph by paragraph, and I give a little background as to how Ibn Ashur is explaining these ayat. And you can find essentially these, the content of these footnotes is then also explained verbally in that course. So if I bring you back just for a little bit more to share before I conclude this video, here is the course on ibnashur.com/Yasin. Some details about the course here. And you can also find some broader details about the project, which is called the Light of Assurance. So this is our flagship project at the Ibn Ashur Center. The whole center is not all about the tafsir of Ibn Ashur, but we certainly are taking this as an important starting point for a lot of the work that we want to do. Ibn Ashur, to us, represents the deep appreciation of tradition with the readiness to be creative and original and to think again and have new opinions. And this is really what we think is the right kind of balance that we should be seeking in the current times. So on this page, Light of Assurance, you can find some information about Ibn Ashur. You can follow through to our YouTube video if you haven't already. Just a 9-minute documentary film we made in Tunisia, where I was exploring the life and legacy of Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur. Here is a kind of timeline of the things that we are working on, and also the opportunity to support us if you follow through to our Patreon. There are as well many people who are supporting this project. We really appreciate the input that they have, not just on the financial level, but also their comments, their suggestions, and of course, their prayers. And you can join just for some £10 a month, or if you're able to give more, then we welcome that as well. And then you get some uh, behind the scenes information. You get to hear some things first. You get to benefit from things that others will not. One final thing that I want to share with you. There is a document that we've put together, and I'll share the link also in the description. This is more for the geeky kinds of people who really want to get into examining this translation and comparing it. And I hope you see this also as a sign of our confidence, if you like, that we want our translation to be examined. We want it to be critiqued. I want to stress that what we have put together and published here is actually a draft of the translation, not a rough draft, but it is one that we fully expect to revise before the final translation is done in full. Because as you work on a translation, you come to other surahs, and then you find that there are things that you want to rethink in terms of a particular word or phrase, and you go and fix that same word or phrase in other places it occurred. So we fully expect to come back to Surat Ya-Sin to revise and to change things. And we really do want, by putting this out, to receive people's thoughts, feedback, whether it's about particular verses, ayat, translations, choices that we've made, or whether it's about the format as a whole. How useful have you found it? How has it helped you to explore and to understand the Quran? What limitations did you find with it? How would you perhaps see it improved? And I want to also stress that this is an attempt at sharing with you the book form, albeit in a PDF, but it's still laid out as a book. We are also working on it from now as a digital output, and that's due to the relationship that we have with Quran.com and the support that they're putting in to commission this translation and fund its production so that it's something that can really help to change people's level of engagement with the meanings of the Quran in translation through digital means. And nowadays, you know that we're all using these devices, and not that many people are buying books. We still want to put out books. We're thinking of this now as perhaps 5 large volumes. It might end up being uh, a higher number of smaller volumes, but it could be 5 large volumes. And I hope that all of you watching this would be the kind of people who are keen to buy that and have that on your shelves. But let's face it, we need to think beyond the book format nowadays. Now, I want to show you a comparison between our translation and a few others. Now, the type of translation that I'm comparing it with, or that I'm inviting you to compare it with, is a very particular kind, and that is essentially a summarized tafsir, a brief tafsir. So sometimes when I've shown people the translation that we've put out, there was one professor from Toronto who saw it, who said to me, "That looks like Al-Jalalain." And I said, "Well, I haven't really thought about it, but yes, it does look like Jalalain." So here I'm just going to show you this right-hand column is the tafsir of Al-Jalalain. That is to say, the tafsir done by Jalaluddin al-Mahalli of Surat Ya-Sin. And of course, the other half of the tafsir was done by Jalaluddin al-Suyuti. And it's a tafsir which was done to just insert some explanatory phrases in between phrases of the Arabic Quran itself. Then it's been translated twice. And here I've actually put this FH stands for Faraz Hamza. It's Faraz Hamza's translation that was part of the Great Tafsirs project out of Jordan. And this is a very nice translation. And I was actually, when I've looked at it more recently and looked at it properly, I realized it's been done very well. And you could certainly make use of this. So if you look at this Jalalain, you might find that the work that we have put together, at least in this basic amount of it, is similar to Jalalain. But what we've done is take the detailed work of Ibn Ashur and produced a condensed form of it that now resembles the Jalalain. Of course, there are certain differences. For one thing, in this Jalalain, you can start to see some grammatical explanations, which are quite difficult or near impossible for someone who doesn't know Arabic to actually make any sense of. So translating them, saying ala is semantically connected to the preceding statement, straight path, this is meaningless to someone who doesn't know Arabic grammar. Therefore, it doesn't really have a place in something which is supposed to be purely an English translation. So this is not a criticism, it's just a fact of the matter. Here, of course, in the left column, we have the Ibn Ashur translation, and this is the work that we have done. Here, I've split it up ayah by ayah instead of being able to see it in the paragraphs as you do in the PDF. So that slightly reduces its charm and its impact and usability. Also, we've taken away any headings, and of course, we have taken away the footnotes for the purpose of this comparison. So bear in mind that these other works do not have any footnotes and don't have any further apparatus, except the Jalalain, Faraz Hamza has inserted some footnotes here and there, but these other works do not have any footnotes. Now, in the Jalalain translation, there is actually a distinction between these things which are bold, which are words of translation of the ayah, and the things which are not bold, which are the tafsir written by Al-Jalal al-Mahalli. Then I'm going to mention three other works where, in fact, no distinction was made. There wasn't a bold and unbold, but I have actually done that here in the document just to help show the things that are inherent to the translation and things which are added and things that function as commentary. So here, this is called the Muntakhab, which was a project that came out of Egypt. This was by Azhari scholars. And first there was a commentary written in Arabic, and then they have translated that commentary into English. Likewise, Al-Mukhtasar min Tafsir al-Qur'an al-Kareem, coming out of Markaz Tafsir in Riyadh. And this was also written in Arabic and then translated into English. This is the first version of the translation. I understand there's another version that's going to come out soon. For the Muntakhab, this is in fact the second version of the translation because there was a previous version that went very, very wrong. I won't go into that. But you see, there's a kind of logic that is followed by these state projects, whether from Egypt or from Saudi Arabia, that what you need to do instead of translating the Quran is to write a brief Arabic tafsir and then translate that tafsir. This I'm showing you here is the result of that. And I want you to compare that with what happens when you really just write this in English and that's your starting point. You're not trying to write it in Arabic and then translate it, but you're taking the information in Arabic, that's all this detailed information here, and then you are producing something in English that is tailored for the purpose. And the last comparison is with Nuh Hamim Keller's translation, and with the input of Sheikh Ali Hani in Jordan. And this, although it is not as such marketed as a tafsir, has a sort of similar format to what we are seeking after, which is to say the integration of the translation with some commentary that is in between those words. And again, there is no distinction made in that publication between the things that should be bold and the things that should not be bold. So for example, here on a supreme straight path, according to Keller's methodology, supreme is, as much a part of the translation as the word straight. However, there are sometimes sort of more lengthy interjections like this, which ought to be marked off, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, and ought to be indicated as additional to the text and not inherent to the translation of the ayah. But by doing this, bold and unbold, of course, that's my judgment. I can be right or wrong as to how that should be done, but I'm trying to indicate and make it clearer what are the things that are additional and what's the extent of that. So it's not a very large extent here, certainly in Surat Ya-Sin, but by going through, you can compare the results. And if you're super interested, let me show you one more thing. If you go to my profile page on the website, which is ibnashur.com/Sohaib Saeed, you can find a number of my publications and even some draft publications which aren't out yet. And one of those is called Exegetical Qur'an Translation, Theoretical and Practical Considerations. This is something which is coming out from a journal in Qatar University, I hope early next year. But you can read it now. You just click here on the draft, and you can find here some background about the idea about using tafsir in translation, some of the ways that this has been done, some of the limitations, some of the problems that occur. And there is even a section about what I call the three M's. I had mentioned there for you the mukhtasar and the muntakhab. And there is one more, which is called al-muyassar. It's only not in the comparison document because there is no translation of Surat Ya-Sin in English, as far as I know. And then there is some background then that leads to the idea that we have implemented in the Ibn Ashur translation, exegetical translation, A Way Forward. So this is just to show you that there is a theoretical background, an academic background to what we do. We try to have an evidence-based approach to our work, and we try to justify what we do. At the same time, we want to be involved in a scholarly conversation and a conversation with the user base who would actually benefit from works like this. So please do share your feedback. Be kind, choose good words, but by all means tell us what you don't like as well as what you do like, so that we can do more of the one thing and less of the other thing if possible. And please make dua for this project. Support us on Patreon if you're able. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.